Hello and welcome to Gettable, afl.com.au's home of trade, draft, free agency and contract news. We are here thanks to Google. It's great to have our friends at Google back on board in season 2025. I'm Riley Beveridge. This is Cal Twomey. Cal is over there at the screen because on today's episode, we have got a massive edition of Askable. That is where you ask your questions and we answer them. And the reason why Cal is over there is because Mark's got the first question and he wants to know, Cal, what would be your plan to fix the Saints? Take us through it.
Well, this is our cover story for today, Riley. Here it is, Nazai Miller. We all want to know what he's doing, but he's part of the Saints' long game. And this is the building blocks to the St Kilda return, which they have to do really patiently. Here's a couple of the other things coming up. Every club's latest trade and contract news, as well as the mid-season rookie draft finally taking shape. And is this rising star set for the biggest payday in footy? But let's get to the Saints because this is my 7-point plan to get the Saints rocking again. So let's start with prioritising the draft build. They're already doing this. They're not at ground zero. They've laid some foundations over the past couple of years that suggest they're actually a couple of steps into this. Despite being a bottom 6 team on the ladder, they have to do the hard yards first. Prioritising the draft build, they've done that. 15 draft picks over the last 3 years. They've done 5 first-round picks. If they keep their first-round pick this year, it'll be a 6th in that period. Nailing the nucleus and locking them in. Got to settle on who your players are going to be when you're good.
Yep.
And these are the guys. Clearly, Nazai Miller is a big part of that. It's an open checkbook, really, isn't it? How many years they can get him for if he stays. But Mitch Owens is re-signed for 4 more years already, so they've locked him in long term. They want to lock in Mateus Philippou through to free agency, Max King's through to 2032. So, and the other 3 are first-round picks, which I'm sure will be extended at some point. Consider the trade options for assets. This is a part that Hawthorn went down with their senior players when they realised they weren't going to be there for their future success. So you have to consider that and see what you can get in. And also taking on salary dumps to boost the draft hand. You have to be creative around ways to increase your draft hand. If pick purchasing was a thing, St Kilda would be all over it. It should be. They're another club that it should be the case. You've got to use your salary cap space as a weapon in that front and also find the picks and the clubs that need extra points and manage to build up rapport with them so that you're in the market for those extra selections come draft time. Targeting the big fish signings. We know about Tom de Koning, Harley Reid we've spoken about is among the sites there, and also Miles Bergman, one of the players that they'll have their eyes on at different points this year. Keep taking swings. They have to be in all of these different opportunities. Category B rookies, they've looked at that. Pre-season spots, mid-season draft as well. You never know what you can get with some of these players. That's where Hawthorn have found some bonuses too in this space. We know the John Newcomb selection. The Hawthorn model is the one that everyone's following at the moment, clearly. And don't stray. Saints don't stray. You have to follow that strategy. You have to see it through and fix up the State League program, which is clearly on their agenda as well. So you have to commit to the strategy. It's got to be draft built, but also you have to, along the way, tick off some of the things. And I think they're getting there. There's bits and pieces. This is a bit around Tom de Koning as well that has to be said. Yeah, it's a lot of money, but you have to get one to land 2. It's like bowling and taking wickets. You know, 1 leads to 2 sometimes, and you need to get 1 to make the next one feel more comfortable to get there.
Well, that's what Hawthorn's done over the last couple of years, get 1 to get the next. And that's what I think North Melbourne probably failed to do in the late 2010s when they went on that spree of targeting Andrew Gaff, Josh Kelly. They couldn't get 1 over the line. You said they're not at ground zero, Cal. Where do you think they are at in their list build as you come back to the desk?
Oh, I think they've taken some steps, but this year, I also, if they don't get some of these big name players that they're after and have been after, I don't think it's a disaster either. You just keep going back to the draft. The strategy suggests that you go to the draft enough, you're going to become a more attractive proposition.
All right, we'll get to plenty more of your questions on this mega episode of Askable. Don't forget, you can ask your questions on our Instagram page. That is at Gettable. You can find us there. Hoagie wants to know, will Ben King stay at Gold Coast long term or get to free agency and potentially move clubs?
Well, still has next year to run on his deal, of course. Traditionally, he's done his deals over summer or at the start of a season, so hasn't waited too long into his contract year to get that done. I think that probably changes next year, to use the free agency leverage, but Collingwood will be all over him. I keep saying it, but they will be.
Yep. Sammy, Luke Jackson latest?
Yeah. Well, I still think this has legs. I just don't know how the deal gets done if Melbourne holds on to Cozzy Pickett.
Yeah.
And that's the big key part to it. The Demons got 2 first-rounders for Jackson and didn't give back a second-rounder. That was at the end of 2022. He's a far better player now, which we saw on the weekend. Fremantle should be finding a new home for Sean Darcy and not letting Luke Jackson go, really, even if he wants to. And I think that's where it sits. Current Dockers teammates, former Melbourne teammates. I think there's always a bit of a feeling around this Luke Jackson situation having far more fire than they've let on. Justin Longmuir spoke about other clubs fanning the flames of it. There's elements of that that's true, but also the reality is that he didn't like the match originally. That was Luke Jackson.
Yeah, and Luke Jackson openly flirted with the idea to teammates, both former and current, as you mentioned. The issue is if they let Sean Darcy go, is there a worry that Luke Jackson says in 12 months' time, actually, no, I do want to explore this more?
Bad luck.
Yeah.
You're signed.
Tom, will Sam Draper stay at Essendon?
Well, this one's approaching a key juncture of the season. Essendon, as we revealed on Gettable last week, has Essendon has put forward a deal to keep him, and it's understood to be around that 4-year mark. So does another club come in over the top and offer bigger and better? Adelaide is absolutely in this, in my opinion. They're right in the hunt there for Draper. We've been saying it for 12 months. And as an unrestricted free agent, he can walk there if he wanted to. I think Draper will seriously consider that as an option. But there's other Victorian clubs that I think will be chasing and be interested as well. What does Collingwood do if Darcy Cameron moves? What does Carlton do if Tom De Koning goes?
Yeah.
So there's some ruck movement to be had. Ultimately, I still think it's either Adelaide or Essendon for Sam Draper, and that's a big call that he's got to make. The interesting bit is that Riley O'Brien's still unsigned at Adelaide, so is he waiting to see what happens on that front?
And they've offered him that deal, as Josh Gablich reported in Inside Trading earlier this year.
The other bit is like Tex is in his final few months potentially as being the cult figure of South Australia as a player. Is that role ready to be found a new place?
Passed on the cult hero status. Zach wants to know, is there any chance North gets Maynard, Collingwood's captain, on the weekend?
No, I think he's staying at Collingwood.
Yeah.
Expecting him to stay there on a 4-year deal worth around $3.4 million, I think. So other clubs have come to him with big interest, but I think he's going to stay a Magpie.
Okay.
Right, Lucy wants to know, any mid-season mail?
Yeah, plenty coming through now. The mid-season draft, of course, on afl.com.au next Wednesday night. Tom McCarthy, we put this on the radar about 6 weeks ago. I think now he is looming as a very strong chance to be taken as the number 1 pick, which currently belongs to West Coast. Had 24 disposals and 3 clearances against North Melbourne on Sunday. He was really impressive. He's been impressive all year playing for Richmond VFL. So at the moment, he looks the favourite to head to West Coast with pick 1. A couple of others in the mix. Oliver Eastland is a ruck for Claremont in the Waffle. He's 27 years old. 199 centimetres. He's become an option for Essendon. Of course, we know they're likely to target a ruck with one of their 4 open spots that they've got available at the moment. Sam Draper and Nick Bryan went down. He's averaging 19 disposals and 32 hitouts per game this season. Port Adelaide opened a spot on Tuesday with Xavier Walsh ruled out for the season. Whether or not they take it remains to be seen. But Ewan McKinlay is someone they've tracked, North Adelaide forward. Carlton, unlikely to open a second spot. I think they'll give Nick Newman every chance. Not guaranteed that he comes back this year, but I think they'll give him every chance to play second half of the season. But they've had some links recently to Richmond VFL forward Sam Toner, a 19-year-old there. Michael Selwood from Peel Thunder in the Waffles got some links, 21-year-old midfielder. And Caleb Lewis, the high flyer out of Dingley, has played a few games for Casey at VFL level over the last couple of years. He's one that clubs are watching very strongly as well.
He hasn't played recently, which is interesting too. You wonder if some of these guys take the weekend off and if that makes a little bit more notice around where they're going. Yes. Jacob Newton had some links to Carlton as well, overlooked last year, so he's one. And there's also one who at this stage and won't be eligible, a name I want to put on the radar as well, probably more for the end of the year now. It's Latrell Sumner Pickett. He's the cousin of Cozzy. Didn't nominate for last year's draft, and hasn't played enough games that are required to be eligible for the mid-season pool next week, but definitely has clubs looking at him. This was him over the weekend. A couple of really nice goals. Kicked 3 goals in the under-18 v under-20 SA game. As I said, cousin of Cozzy, so there's some similarities in the way they play and with some physicality and also around their goals. That's a nice one there. So he's a good finish. It would take an exemption for him to be available, and I don't think that happens anymore. But definitely one that clubs are maybe wishing did play a couple more games at the start of this year at the highest level. Yeah,
only first season at Glenelg as well this season, having come from local footy. Wayne wants to know, if you're Richmond, would you trade pick 2 and 3 for Harley or take them to the draft?
I would trade for Harley Reid if I was in that position, yeah. I mean, I would do that deal as Richmond in a heartbeat. This is what people need to know about this year's draft pool. There are talented players in it, and we will know more for sure after the Under-18 Carnival. Of course, some of Harley's stuff over the weekend was back to some of his most damaging best. But the Under-18 Carnival is coming up, and that'll tell the true story of how good this year's draft pool is. But there just isn't the same level of star factors as there were last year and in recent years as well. So this is going to have a ripple effect into the trade period and what clubs want to do this time around and at the end of this season. Because will they really want to lose contractor players who they have control over for picks in this year's draft that just isn't as strong? That's just the reality. It's just not as strong. It doesn't have the same star quality. It doesn't have the same depth. And for me, Cooper Duff-Tightler is the standout at the moment as the number one options. But underneath that, there are some players showing some exciting stuff at different points. But if I go back to 2023 in Harley's year, after him, McKercher, Walter, Sanders, Dersma, Watson, Caddy even, would have all been number one in this year's group. Go back to last year, O'Sullivan, Smith, Draper, Ashcroft, Langford would have all been number one in this year's group.
Yeah.
So I think that sells the different stories, and that's going to have an impact on what clubs are willing to do on the trade table on this front.
A lot of those players that are coming in under Cooper Duff-Tyler are tired as well, which...
Yeah, I'm not even counting them. I'm not even counting them. So if I'm just looking at the open pool, I just think that the championships will tell a story, but right at this stage, you can't have that much confidence around making the big trades.
Yep.
All right, Tom, speaking of Harley.
Yes.
Who would you take out of the number one picks over the past 4 years? Jason Horne-Francis, Harley Reid, or Sam Lawler?
Well, there they are over there. At the moment, I still think Harley. I mean, I think based on both potential and runs on the board. So with Jason Horne-Francis now, I think you're looking at the runs on the board. He's 4 years into his career. With Sam Lawler, you're basing it purely on potential. I think the combination of Harley Reid and what he's shown, he was great on the weekend, 2 goals, inspiring that win over St Kilda, combined with the potential to get even better when he is settled, when he is focused entirely on his footy. He doesn't have this contract stuff rumbling on in the background, whether or not he re-signs at West Coast, stays long-term there, and he settles that way or moves clubs at the end of the season. I still think Harley. Then probably Jason Horne-Francis, based on what he's been able to produce over the last 4 years. And Sam Lawler, I mean, you've seen the potential this year, the glimpses that he has shown when he's gone through the midfield.
Yeah, I think talent for me, Harley's still the best of that group, but Jason Horne-Francis is a beast in the midfield and will play some huge games and has already shown that. I think he wins a Brownlow at some point in his career, and Sam Lawler, I think he's blown everyone away in how good he's been in year one. So how much can he project? It does show the value clubs are having on this type of player, though. And 3 out of the last 4 number ones have been that. The one in between, obviously, being Aaron Cadman, who was more the needs pick. In that year's draft, probably Bailey Humphries, that type. And he's going well. I mean, he's ranked number 13 in the competition for the impact basically this year. So going well, those players.
They certainly are. All right, Declan wants to know, is Oscar Allen leaving? We put it on the radar a couple of weeks ago. This would go quiet. Just wanted to focus on his footy. He was good on the weekend.
Yeah, he's better up forward, wasn't he? I believe he will leave, though. I mean, I think that's just the way things are tracking. And I think it can be a good thing for both parties, really, if he finds a new home and if it did register or see the Eagles receive pick 2 out of that deal as a restricted free agent leaving, and if it generated that, then it'd be a good point. If it generated pick 20, as I was just talking about this year's draft, I think it's another discussion.
Yeah.
So that's where you have to know what you're dealing with. Brisbane's still a favourite, I think. Hawthorn's lingering. Richmond also had interest last year, but then went and drafted about 15 tools, so that sort of evaporated pretty quickly. But they were interested in the lead up to last year's draft. But I think clubs who are keen on Oscar Allen will be watching closely in the second half of the season to check out that value.
Jack wants to know, what will Nazaya do if the Saints keep losing? Because I thought your 7-point plan was going to be point 1, keep Nazaya, point 2, keep Nazaya, point 3, keep Nazaya.
Yeah, get Harley, get TDK, keep Nazaya. What will he do? I mean, I think he's going to keep waiting regardless. Yeah, I mean, performances like the weekend don't help, clearly, but it's a bigger picture decision for him on that front. There's the lure of home. There's so much going into this call. Adelaide has the big offer there. Port will as well. St Kilda open to any length of deal. Could it be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, whatever. But look, he can wait this out. He's playing good footy. It hasn't really impacted him. He's going to the midfield more. He's doing a lot of things really, really well. So I think he's going to wait regardless. Okay.
Owen wants to know, Cody Walker had a monster game on the weekend. Top 5 pick loading. He had 31 disposals and 3 goals.
Is Owen your pseudonym?
Yes.
You're excited, aren't you?
I'm very excited about Cody.
Well, let's have a look at why you're excited. This game from Cody Walker was outstanding on the weekend. 31 touches, 10 marks, 8 tackles, 5 clearances, 7 inside 50s, 5 rebound 50s, and 3 excellent goals. That is a huge game as a bottom major, and again shows his star quality. Look at some of his finishing here. He's going to be heading into next year's draft as a number 1 pick contender. How about this goal? They're on the run, the long kick. He's got the hunchback like his dad, Andrew, did. And obviously Andrew's a Carlton great, a former very early pick for the Blues. Is eligible to go to Richmond as a next generation academy player as well. I think if you're a Tigers supporter, you'd probably just be forgetting that one.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be going to Carlton. But going into next year, he's going to be a number 1 pick contender. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And a few more performances like that, and he might become the favourite.
Well, speaking of father-son v academy debates, one of the most intriguing ones, Jazz wants to know, will Cooper Hodge pick Brisbane or Hawthorn? Because he played for the Lions Academy on the weekend. He was very good.
Yeah, he did. We watched this game at Windy Hill. He had 16 tackles. Let's count them. There's one of them. There's another couple coming up. Bang.
Coming up.
There's another one. 15 disposals, 16 tackles. Bang. There's another one. We're about to get on one. Yep, there's a tackle. And again, got another one coming up. There you go, the ball. We don't want to see that.
That's not fun. We don't want to see kicks. We want to see tackles.
So that's a little bit of him as a player. He's a goer. He's done some really good things in the 16s last year, into the 17s this year so far. So I think both clubs would be having a real dip at it, clearly. The connection to home in Queensland is going to be strong, I think. So that's going to be one that's going to be hard to beat, and we've seen that in different cases as well. Do you think that players who are father-son should be tied to Northern Academies? Like Nick Blakey?
Yeah, I mean, my kind of thing is you use Northern Academies to...
Aidan McCartney?
Wasn't the point of Northern Academies to help introduce kids to football for the first time from unorthodox backgrounds and from non-football backgrounds? I mean, Cooper Hodge knew what football was, I'm guessing, when he was growing up.
Yeah, might have had an inkling. Look, North Melbourne's actually put this forward as part of their submissions in the past as well, around the fact that if you're tied to a club as an academy, a father-son, you shouldn't get academy access either. Obviously, they have a big decision themselves coming up in Aidan McCartney next year, who's tied to the Swans. But yeah, just on the compromised nature of the draft as well, we're coming up to the Tasmanian period, obviously, and that's getting closer and closer. Whether that's in the next month or 2 months, we get to see some resolutions around their list build concessions, that they're still pushing really hard not to have caveats on these picks. So at the moment, there's 6 picks there that have must-trade asterisks on them. They are pushing, and other clubs are really open to it as well, and the ones that I've spoken to and just saying, let them loose, let them go and see what comes up. So fascinated to see which way the Commission decide on that.
It certainly will be.
All right, John, Judd McVie. Where's he at with his contract?
Well, you wrote earlier this year that he wanted to wait until he returned from that hamstring injury before kicking off contract talks. He's back in the side now. You'd have to think contract talks would pick up with Melbourne. 4 years to free agency, and I think he's worth a 4-year deal given what he's been able to show since coming off the rookie list over the last couple of seasons. He's so important to that back line. What he does do in the future as well is I think he provides the flexibility for Trent Rivers to go back into the midfield. I know Rivers is playing really well as a half-back at the moment, but he gives him that flexibility to go through the midfield as well.
More likely to?
I think more likely, well, you'd have to think, given he's from Western Australia, he'd probably be pushing for a 2-year deal to sort of give him that option in a couple of years. But I think if you're Melbourne, you're probably pushing for 4. That's what I'd be doing anyway.
6 if you're Melbourne.
Johnny wants to know, where do you think Miles Bergman is playing next year?
Well, that is an amazing question that no one really knows the answer to, because I know Port would walk 500 miles for Bergman, and then they'd walk another 500 more because he's going that well when I wake up. Carlton has interest.
Yes.
The Western Bulldogs are chasing him as well. Melbourne is having a dip too. Nathan Bassett's an assistant coach there. He's formerly an assistant, of course, at Port Adelaide. St Kilda is there holding the cards close to the chest too. He's been linked strongly at different stages. So there'll be more too. Ultimately, like he did last time, he's going to be hard to read until he wakes up one day and says, I'm either staying on this 2+ multiple years later deal that Port Adelaide's put forward, which we revealed last week on the show, or he wakes up and says, all right, I'm going to go back to Melbourne. This is something I've been thinking about for a while, and he's going to take his time to do that. He's been pretty considered with his decision-making in the past.
Yep.
Just on the Dogs as well, I think we'll see some movement on the Marcus Bontempelli contract very soon, maybe within the next week.
Okay.
Let's keep an eye on that one.
Long time coming, but definitely worth it.
The coaching
for Dogs
captain
fans.
might be done pretty soon.
Yeah, okay. Christian wants to know, why hasn't Callum Archie re-signed yet?
Well, there's been ongoing discussions for a while now on this one, probably about 3 or 4 months. But
It's hard play to value, isn't he?
Well, the funny part for me on Cal Archie is that it's probably his last really significant deal.
Yeah.
So he turns 28 later this year, so he'd be pushing for a 3-4 year deal. That he gets into your 30s at that point. So what are you getting from that? I think there's a feel from rivals that if a deal was strong enough that he could be open to looking at what it would look like to move to a third club. But ultimately, I think the most likely scenario is he works it out. He stays at the Lions where he was so good in that premiership win last year.
Yes. Bailey, any news on Zach Butters? It's the question everyone wants to know.
Well, I mean, no. There's the enormous deal in front of him, the biggest ever if he signed it. I don't think much moves there for a bit, but it's clear that Port Adelaide has put the flag in the ground and said this is how much we value, and given him options within that too for the shorter then plus longer option for him to to work through. But gee, he's a good player, and you can see why Port Adelaide and every other club in the competition, particularly in Victoria, is chasing him.
You demand. One of the biggest Swans fans out there wants us to rank Sydney's academy draftees from this year because they've got some talented ones, don't they?
They do. Max King's at the top of that rung. I think talent-wise, athleticism, freakishness, he's got all of that. And then it's, I think the championships will tell the story as well for the Allies and where Noah Chamberlain and Lockie Carmichael sit in that pecking order. And there's some other ones pushing up as well. But I don't think those guys have been, those second ones and third ones would be in the first 15 to 20.
Yeah, okay.
But I think Max King is certainly in that conversation. So the Allies, which should be again really strong despite a couple of injuries hitting them over recent weeks, it will be telling a story on a lot of fronts, I think, in the coming weeks for how strong these Northern Academy players are.
And they kick off the championships campaign against South Australia in
next week.
Next week, isn't it? Yeah. All right, Michelle wants to know, who are the best SA prospects in this year's draft pool?
Well, last week we spoke about a guy called Mitch Marsh. And
Mitch Marsh?
Yeah, Mitch Marsh. Remember Mitch Marsh?
I remember Mitch Marsh.
We spoke about him last week. Yeah, mini Bison. Well, it's actually got back to the other Mitch Marsh that we were speaking about, Mitch Marsh. Can we have a listen to Mitch Marsh speaking about Mitch Marsh?
Good morning, Gettable's crew. I'm just going through this Mitch Marsh profile, draft prospect, and a couple of things I'm reading here. Booming left foot, big tank, gut running centre half forward, good team man, enjoys a win. So yeah, if this other Mitch Marsh is any good, or half as good as me, club is staring down a 250 game player. So all the best to him.
Well, half as good as me, Mitch Marsh.
Well, he was a very good player himself. We've got a shot of him. We're trying to dig through the archives. There he is. Looks natural.
Like a WA.
That's him in the gully. Thanks for that video from Mitch Marsh talking about Mitch Marsh on our show on Mitch Marsh.
That's extraordinary. Yeah,
there are some other players in South Australia looking pretty good too. Of course, Jevan Filippo nursing that broken arm. Still a really talented player. Sam Cummings going pretty well. Some clubs have Matt Leray pretty early. Dawson Sharp has his takers early. He's an interesting one in terms of where he fits in the draft pool as an inside midfielder. I mean, there's guys that can polarise sometimes, the inside midfielders and where they all fit. So that's a watch in the championships too. But I expect him to play very well because he plays well most weeks.
He does. Peter wants to know, name some big draft rises for us to watch.
Xavier Taylor is one I want to talk about. Let's have a look at Xavier's form over the weekend. 12 marks, 24 disposals playing for the Eastern Rangers. He really blunted Max King's influence. We spoke about Max King before. Little slip there. Glad we kept that in.
Poor save.
As a player with no ties to any club, he will be really appealing with his marking in this year's draft pool and his ability to read the play. So Xavier Taylor is one that we haven't spoken about too much. There he is again. Read it really well on the weekend. And will be one of Gettable's favourites coming up, I think. Yep. Noah Hibbins-Hargraves, a midfield option generally, more of an outside midfielder who can use the ball really well. Played predominantly forward for the Dandenong Stingrays over the weekend. Kicked 4 goals at that level. Looks likely to be around that first round range. So he's one that's been a part of different programs over the past couple of years, but certainly been on the radar as a talent prospect for Vic Country in the coming championships as well. And Harrison Bridge, I thought, impressed as well for Brisbane's Academy on Sunday with 2 goals from 20 disposals and 8 tackles too.
Paula wants to know, where does Dylan Patterson get bid on? We were out in Preston on the weekend. He showed some very exciting glimpses of his potential.
This guy is called the Rocket. Let's see some visions of the Rocket. Watch him go.
I love the way he just runs at people, because he's either going to beat them for speed or he's just going to run through them.
It's a great highlights package, probably the best in it. Here he goes again. The Rocket launches off half-back. He had 26 disposals, 6 inside 50s, 6 rebound 50s. So he's in... Oh, there goes the Rocket. He's fired up. He's in the Gold Coast Academy. He's got speed to burn. Looks like he would have been... If it looks like he would have been a good rugby player, it's because he was a good rugby player.
Yeah.
He had 5 NRL clubs try and get him and sign him as a rookie. The Broncos, Parramatta. He's turned his back on that to be an AFL prospect and interesting draft range. I mean, some really love the weaponry that he has to be really early in the draft. Others maybe later in the first round, but certainly he has the wheels to get going. So the Rocket, one of the best highlights package in the draft.
Yeah, he's just about one of my favourites from this year's pool. Matt wants to know, Give us some Geelong trade and contract updates, please.
Please, because you asked so nicely. Ollie Dempsey is the big one.
Yes.
Really going so well.
Another one that's interesting, like a hard one to value, isn't he? Star winner.
I'm OD's OG.
Yes, you are. I remember in his draft year, you put him on the radar, I reckon.
Yeah, watched him for Kerry. I've loved him since, and he's going so well, kicking goals, taking marks. The most exciting wingman in the game. Still out of contract. The rising star from last year. What's this guy worth? I think he could be in for the biggest payday in footy.
Yeah.
Based on what his last contract was, which obviously I don't think would have been unders or anything like that. But now he's just exploded. And what do you get him through to free agency in 4 years? So what's he worth? Is he pushing 850, 900? Would another club come for him at that sort of money? This is where I think that, clubs talk about Geelong. How do they fit everyone in?
Yeah.
And cotton on and all these this type of stuff, a bit of fun and mirth around the edges. But like the reality is, why doesn't clubs, and I'm sure they are interested in Ollie Dempsey, but why don't they make him offers that he can't refuse?
Yeah.
And
Are
some of
clubs
these
not
other
ruthless
guys
enough in that regard, do you think?
I don't think they are. No,
Yeah.
I think there's just an established view that because Geelong's so good, so stable, he's a good player, that he's going to stay.
Yeah.
But Geelong do it the other way and go rip him out of other places. Like everyone thought Jeremy Cameron would stay.
Yeah.
It's still a masterstroke that they got him out of the Giants as a free agent. So, yeah, he's one that contract-wise is still ongoing, but clearly they're into all the midfielders. Butters, Reid, Warple, there's interest in there. If you could, Butters or Reid? Little one to finish?
Butters purely because you won't be paying anything from him from a draft standpoint.
No, this year.
Oh, am I doing it this year?
No,
So
that doesn't matter.
I'm trading for them. Am
Even
I?
if it's next year, you're paying for Butters in trade. He's not coming for free.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. Too hard to split. 50-50 for me. You?
Love them all. Geelong will probably try and get both.
Yeah, they probably will. And they might even do it in the end as well. All right. Big thanks to you, Cal. Massive episode of the show. Big thanks to Google for their continued support as well. Big thanks to Mitch Marsh for sending that video on his way, I'm sure, to the World Test Championships to go and watch that one. All right. Thank you heaps for watching. Don't forget, same time, same place next week. And of course, the mid-season rookie draft is on its way to afl.com.au. That will be next week as well. Can't wait to see you there. And keep tuning in to afl.com.au.
It's Mitch Marsh.
Yeah, mate.